most of the time, that gap, that retirement gap, is not the individual's fault. Life happened. Our institution should have anticipated life happen. We shouldn't expect everybody to be superhuman. We should have super institutions, not superhuman beings.
Working longer is often described as the best way to secure your retirement, especially if you haven't saved enough. And here to talk with me about that and all things related to retirement is Teresa Ghilarducci. She's a professor at the New School, and she's also the author of numerous books, most recently, Work, Retire, Repeat. Teresa, welcome.
Hi. Hi, Bob. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. So let's start right with the hard questions, I guess. You've argued that the working longer consensus is not a solution, but an insidious problem. So maybe you could elaborate on why this consensus has eroded both the quantity and quality of people's years, older people's years, diminishing their time before death and often leading to increased illness.
Oh, yeah, the working longer consensus is really a convenient, untruth. The consensus was that, well, if people haven't saved for the last 40 years, when we told them to, at least they have an out, and we don't have to do anything about it. It's just the problem is on the individual. And since everyone is living longer, then people can clearly live, and work longer. And since jobs are getting easier, then all people can work longer. Well, those two things, everyone's living longer and everyone has easier jobs, are false. And therefore, this idea that we could all just work longer to make up for retirement savings gaps, is false. Some people are living longer. I see it in my data sets that people who have stable lives, good jobs, stable jobs, in escalating salaries, they often have access to good health care, and they're living longer. That's like people with professional degrees and above. Men have gotten, especially white men, have gotten big longevity gains. They are taking their statins and they stop smoking. So we have a big average increase pulled up by these white men doing good things, but they've also been lucky because they've had actually the work careers that lead to longer lives and maybe even a choice to live longer. The rest of us are faced with like flatline longevity. White women's longevity has not increased, mainly because they're working more. Working actually isn't that good for you. And and I looked all over the globe for research on this one question. What kinds of people are made healthier if they work into old age? Over and over again, and almost every week, a new study was coming out, from the United States, from Denmark, from all over the world. And the conclusion is, it depends. If you're part of the elite, that you're the politician who makes retirement policies, you're a professor who professes about retirement policy, or if you're a financial advisor or a banker or a politician who makes policies on retirement, work might make you healthier and keep your mind alive. You can control the pace and the content of your work. But about 11% of populations have those kinds of jobs. They're in the Senate, they're in academia, they're in the position of making influence. The rest of everybody, 89% of people have jobs that if they continued them would actually hasten death by causing more anxiety and cortisol because work and commutes can, especially if you aren't the boss, can create higher levels of cortisol. And when you get older, those higher levels actually hurt your heart worse. Women in service related jobs who are working past 60 are especially vulnerable to having their jobs create more illness, more morbidity, and a shorter lifespan.
Yeah. So, Teresa, just as a follow-up, it sort of creates a dilemma, right? Work longer, die sooner. But if I don't work longer, I won't have the financial security
Yeah.
to enjoy whatever years I have left.
Well, there you go. There was a New Yorker cartoon that had two people discussing, a couple discussing their retirement accounts. You're smiling, so I think you saw the cartoon says, and one of the members of the couple says, I got it. We'll take a early death and a late retirement. Oh, and that actually, unfortunately, is the rational thing to do, oddly, the rational way to think. The problem is, Bob, it's even worse than that. Most people don't have a choice about whether or not they'll be employed in old age. When you drill down on the people who are retired, just go into a room full of retired people and just ask a simple question. Did you retire when you wanted to? Did you retire at the age you wanted to? And most of them will say, no, I retired a lot earlier than I thought I had to. And there's all sorts of reasons you can make them up: health, wealth, layoff. Their skills were obsolete because the world of technology, moved past them. And there's age discrimination. So most of us don't even have a choice to work longer, even if we don't have enough money to live on in our old age.
Yeah. So, Teresa, in our podcast, we try to do two things. We like to say that we want this to be someone's first and last stop in their search for retirement knowledge,
Yeah.
but we also want to give people actionable advice. So, given all that you just said, is what should someone do who's in that
Yeah.
situation?
Yeah, so an individual faced right now, you're coming into your 50s, early 60s, maybe you're in the mid 60s. You have to really do some hygiene. You have to look at your own finances and you have to be realistic about how much you need. And then I say, assess your budget. I look at my spending every month. It's not, I don't do it every day, but I look at it every month. It takes now about 20 minutes to half an hour. And then I have to add 20% because I don't always count what I spend. I like to lowball it. It's sort of like my calorie counts. I really do 20% more than I say I do. Well, I probably spend 10 to 20% more than I do. And then you have to estimate your future retirement income and subtract 20% from that because people underestimate the kind of raises they're going to get, the kind of pension income they're going to get. They forget that stock markets go up and down. So you add 20% to your spending, you decrease your retirement income by 20%, and then you look at the gap. Right? And you look at that gap and you should look at it without shame, without that inner critic saying, "Oh, I should have done this, I should have done that." Because most of the time, that gap, that retirement gap, is not the individual's fault. Life happened. Our institution should have anticipated life happen. We shouldn't expect everybody to be superhuman. We should have super institutions, not superhuman beings. So look at that gap without shame. Try to work longer if you can, if there's that gap. Try to decrease your income. Everyone knows the things to do. You could even be mindful about how much you need. Talk to a fee-only advisor to get rational advice. You've been a really good advocate of staying away from conflicted advisors, so you could help people and really hammer that down. A fee-only advisor. You could visit AARP's website, which has really good retirement calculator, good advice about home equity loans, so good job options if you're older and you want to avoid age discrimination. And also, a lot of agencies can help older people get access to programs to income that they might not already know about. 30% of elders who are eligible for food stamps don't apply. 40% of people who are eligible for SSI, supplementary income, don't apply. Home assistance, energy assistance, all those programs are underutilized. So you have to make sure that you can get all those. And the other thing is that this is a collective problem. So it needs collective action to solve it. You are also the holder of a very valuable resource, which is your vote. And you need and politicians know that older Americans vote, and they try to bamboozle them by saying, "I'm helping the older American." Be very careful not to be distracted with a token tax deduction here or there, as we saw in the last tax bill that just passed. And know that Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid are your most important financial assets. The government is your most important financial partner in your old age, and vote to take care of that.
Yeah. So you've talked about this tale of two retirements, the wealthy and the less wealthy. And you just mentioned Social Security, and the trustees report just came out, and we're looking at a 23% cut come 2033 if Congress doesn't act. What's your take on that, and what to do because of it, or did it happen?
Yeah. You know, we have been in this business for a long time, you and me, Bob, and we always thought Congress would act by now. We really told people, we reassured people, don't worry, there'll never be across the board cut in benefits of 23%. And that means people who get 100% of their income from Social Security will get a 23% cut, and people who only get 10% of their income will get a 23% cut. Guess who is hurt the most? The people who depend upon Social Security. So we only have, actually optimistically, 2033. When you feed in this last tax bill, that insolvency comes sooner, indirectly because of the way the taxes are done. But it means actually Congress not doing anything is actually a hostile act towards Social Security. You got to a point now that when you hear a politician or a president says, no, no, I'm not going to touch Social Security, that means they are actually planning on that cut because Social Security will cut itself, based on it is. So not doing anything will really hurt the bottom 60% of people because they depend on Social Security the most. And it will mean more poverty among elders. Even if you're middle class now, your risk of going into poverty or nil poverty will go up by quite a bit because you don't have a backstop to Social Security. We could be going into a recession at that point, or the economy it will continue this very slow growth with tariffs, with no investments, with a big deficit. So your ability to get extra work may also be trimmed out. There won't be a way out of that low standard of living if Congress doesn't act now.
Yeah. Uh, Teresa, we have to take a short break, but when we come back, I want to talk about, we have so much to talk about: the gray New Deal, government retirement accounts, and perhaps the failure of defined contribution plans. So don't go away. Welcome back to Decoding Retirement. I'm speaking with Teresa Ghilarducci. She's a professor at the New School and author of numerous books, including Work, Retire, Repeat. Teresa, I have a friend who has a blog called Work, Retire, Die. I like your title better,
A
quite
little more
frankly.
hopeful.
Yeah. All right. So I promised that we were going to talk about the Gray New Deal, which is a term that I think is unique to you. I think you coined it. So tell us what it is and what people need to know about it.
Yeah. Yeah, so the New Deal, you remember, is Roosevelt, and it was a New Deal for workers and people who didn't have jobs. This is a New Deal for a very big part of the population. We are richer, we have older people, and it's going to be a permanent quarter of our population. People who are pushed out of work, or want a retirement period. So we need a New Deal for that population. It is absolutely a failure to say, well, those people should just have saved. They should have saved. Or those people can just work. Those are, and I said in my book, those are just unrealistic kind of fantasies and hope. That's not a plan. So what the Gray New Deal is to not say that everybody has to retire. If older people want to work, we absolutely should not have age discrimination. Go work, but those jobs should be better. Those jobs get better when people unionize, when there's more regulations on safety, when there is more accommodation for workers' ability to do the job. All those kind of work protections have to be strengthened in order to make the physical requirements of jobs that older people have, or the requirements that computers make people have, or the surveillance that comes from computers are really tempered and controlled and make those jobs meaningful and resourceful if an older person wants to have it. Many people can't work longer, don't want to work longer, deserve a retirement. So retirement should be made decent. We need to shore up Social Security. We're past the point of cutting Social Security. We're past the point of raising the retirement age, which is just a cut in Social Security. We are only have one agenda for Social Security, and that's to increase revenue and probably benefits. An across the board $200 increase in Social Security would not be untoward. It's probably actually required. It's required now to lower our poverty rates from a world standard of 23%. So we have to increase Social Security, and we need a guaranteed retirement account plan. Half of workers now, Bob, and I'm going to repeat this, do not have access to a retirement plan at work. That means half the people don't. Whenever I'm on a broadcast, everybody who interviews me has a retirement plan, but most of the people listening, half the people listening, if you have a population listening to you that represents America, won't have a retirement plan. And people move in and out of employers that provide a retirement plan. So we need to make sure that people are covered 100% when they work. We are covered 100% with Social Security. Wherever you go, that FICA tax follows you. If you're a gig worker, you pay Social Security. If you're a contingent worker, you pay Social Security. Temporary worker, you pay Social Security. Small employer, middle employer, big employer, you pay Social Security. Well, we should have everybody, when they pay into Social Security, pay into their own savings account. And that is called a guaranteed retirement account. And it's in Congress now as a proposal, and it's supported by Republicans and Democrats. And it's supported by Republicans and Democrats in the House and Republicans and Democrats in the Senate. There has never been such a bold reform of retirement securities, since the 70s. And now that we've done the tax breaks for wealthy people, we now have to turn to retirement security for the rest of us.
Yeah. So my understanding of the GRA is that it would be over and above Social Security. It would be voluntary, perhaps what, upwards of 3% of your salary going into an account that's in your name and invested how you want it to be invested.
Yeah, let me talk about the barista, down the street. And she isn't 23, she's 40. And she's had these kind of service jobs, for 15, 20 years. She would automatically be in the guaranteed retirement account, or we call it the private sector thrift savings plan account. The thrift savings plan, for everybody who's not a federal worker, is the federal workers retirement plan. It's a great plan. It's kind of a hybrid between a defined benefit and defined contribution plan. Um, and federal workers are automatically put into this, retirement account. And the federal government matches when because the government matches, the low income workers, workers like that barista down the street is in it because she knows she puts in $1 and she gets $1.50 from the government, from the employer. Well, our plan would anybody who makes below median wage would be automatically put into a plan at just 1% of their salary, and the government would match it 3 times, 3% of their salary.
Yeah. As you're talking, the thrift savings plan allows you to invest in equities and fixed income, et cetera, and very low cost
Yeah.
investment options. And I suspect that would be the case with GRA. Yeah.
Exactly.
It,
And you know what? Yeah, because the government has the muscle to negotiate for the best plans and the lowest fees.
yeah. I mean, on paper and in reality, it sounds like a great thing to do. What's the holdup? I'd love to see this
You know what?
happen because we're at 50% coverage.
Well, the AARP supports it. Many unions support it. Worker organizations support it. DoorDash supports it. Charles Schwab, Vanguard, Fidelity, they all support it. There's a noisy group that does not support it, and they're the lobbyists for the brokerage industry. Those folks that try to sell these very high fee, non fiduciary accounts, they would have to be retrained to do other work. There would be less demand for these for profit. Some of them are predatory, not all of them, but they're all conflicted. So there's only one small piece of the industry, of the finance industry, that are against it. Almost everybody is for it, even especially small employers. So I think it's just about focus and attention. It's really not about politics. The special interests are against it, but there are bigger public policy issues, and I think most of the people supporting it have been able to ignore them.
Yeah, it's interesting. At least in the United Kingdom, where they have the Nest program, I think it's been widely accepted and widely praised as addressing the retirement crises that presumably
Yeah.
was in the UK.
Most of the time, I don't. invoke the Nest program because most people don't really look outside for shores for examples, but it's very much modeled after what our peer countries do. Advanced market-based societies have a Social Security and a private savings plan, a savings plan, and even the Netherlands, which always gets like A's and A pluses for their retirement plan, they have greedy capitalists in their country. They care about profits. They're just like us, but their people retire at a decent age before they're worn out, and the 3% of poverty. The US, with the same personalities of employers and capitalists and workers, retire at 23% poverty. And we work the most hours of anybody, 1,880 hours. None of our peers work that many years. So we're like worn out when we are working, and we work the longest. We work into our late 60s, where our peers retire in their early 60s. So we're rich, and we just need better institutions.
So you've hinted at this already. We have about, I don't know, maybe 90 seconds left or so, Teresa, about this notion of creating a dignified retirement. Maybe just to talk, if you could, briefly about that.
Yeah, my research has led me away from kind of finances and economics, and because you have to when you get into this psychology, and also workers' voices about what people want out of their life, and the psychologists and the philosophers. And I realized that we are moving away from a vision we had around the 30s, 40s, and 50s, which is the rich and poor alike. The working class people should all deserve some time to create a personal narrative of their life, not just be a worker bee and be a person at the end of their lives. Those 10 years, 20 years are the most precious because they're in short supply. You're going to die. And to be able to control your time during that period of time is very human. And to deny a huge part of our population that period of life is the ultimate inequality. And it's not moral. And so retirement security is more than an kind of a financial decision. It's really a decision about the kind of society we want to create for our people.
Yeah. So I hope your Great New Deal comes to fruition. I hope the GRAs come to fruition, but I'm afraid we've run out of time for now. So we'll have to have you come back on.
Thanks for your work, Bob. This is a really great program, and it was very well prepared.
Thank you. So that wraps up this episode of Decoding Retirement. We hope we provided you with some actionable advice to better plan for or live in retirement. And remember, you can listen to and subscribe to Decoding Retirement on all your favorite streaming platforms.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.